Everyone has at least one bad video game that they've had to deal with in their life. Bad games are almost inescapable. I mean, for fuck's sake, kids who grew up with a Wii had to deal with a library that was 90% hot garbage. I'm thankfully a bit more lucky than that. I grew up with the PS1 and oftentimes played the PS2 over at my friend's house. My childhood gaming memories consist of games such as Spyro 3, the Tony Hawk series before it went to shit, the GTA series, and so much more. Sure, I played a couple of bad games here and there, but I rarely played anything that was lower than a 6 out of 10, and not much has changed really. I almost never go out of my way to play shitty games, but even I can be tempted by sheer morbid curiosity. The game I'll be reviewing today is notorious, and is often seen alongside Bubsy 3D and Big Rigs in worst games lists. I'm of course talking about Drake of the 99 Dragons. I've got 99 problems and this game is one. Now the only reason I have this in my library is because it went on for sale for 69 cents a couple weeks back, and curiosity happened to get the worst of me. I really wanted this to be another case of the internet overhyping how bad a game is. Like when No Man's Sky dropped and every loudmouthed lardass on the internet thought it was the worst thing to happen since the bubonic plague, even though it really wasn't that bad. But no, Drake of the 99 Dragons really is that bad. In fact, it's actually much worse than what most people say, and might just be, in fact, the worst game I've ever played. I now owe Super Bubble Pop an apology for all the flack I've given it, because there's a new sheriff of shittiness in town. According to various sources I've read, Drake was made within either 18 months or 6 to 7 months. I don't know which to believe, but I personally believe the latter because this game feels insanely rushed. Not like a beta build, but an alpha build. It is that sloppy of a product, in many ways. But first, the story. Drake of the 99 Dragons has the worst story of any game I've ever played in my life. It is an incomprehensible mess that gives no context for the characters or backstory, leaving you utterly confused as to what's going on. I've never face-palmed more in my life than when I had to sit through the abysmal cutscenes in this game, trying to make out the utter mess that is this game's plot. And I use the term plot loosely because a fucking 4th grader could come up with a better plot than this. I'd try my best to describe it, but the sheer idiocy on display in this game's cutscenes has lowered my IQ by at least 100 points. I'd recommend you go watch the game's cutscenes on the internet so you can get a better understanding about what I'm talking about. At one point, Drake fucking kills himself, and in another they mention a character named Wang Chung.
The courier's name is Wang Chung, and he is working off a debt to Serpent Eye's son.
Yeah, they named one of the characters after an 80s new wave group for some reason or another. It's not very clever or funny at all, it's just stupid. And the gameplay doesn't fare much better. It is some of the worst I have ever played, mainly due to the absurdly unfair difficulty on display. Normally whenever a game is difficult, it's designed that way to challenge the player in a manner that is satisfying in the long run. Take the Crash Bandicoot games as an example. Certain levels may take you multiple tries to complete, some are even genuinely frustrating, but they always give you an amazing sense of accomplishment whenever you do finally complete them. Drake doesn't give you that feeling at all, and the difficulty in general feels like a result of bad game design rather than giving the player a genuine challenge. I actually died multiple times on the very beginning of the first level, which isn't something that should happen on any game. It is simply a frustrating experience through and through. The gameplay is also extremely clunky to boot, with some really awful hit detection and other oddities such as clipping into the geometry. The slow motion abilities wouldn't be half bad if everything else actually worked. Sound design wise, I've already stated that the voice acting is absolutely atrocious, and it definitely speaks for itself.
Drink, and you'll be strong.
The taste, bitter and sweet. Master?
Do not fear. You can hear but are unable to move.
The time has come. I will forge the undying dragon on your chest. It is our legacy. The undying dragon is a sentient creature unto itself that bestows supernatural powers upon its bearer.
Despite that, the game actually has a halfway decent soundtrack, and has a rather nice late 90s, early 2000s techno kind of vibe to it. This situation reminds me of Super Bubble Pop, another game I hate with every fiber of my being. That game was horrible in every regard except for the music, which actually wasn't half bad. This game has 99 problems, but the soundtrack isn't one. It's not great, but it isn't half bad either. But with the exception of rhythm games and Metal Gear Rising, a soundtrack alone does not make a game great, and this is one of the worst games I've ever played, and critics at the time slammed this game. It doesn't have the same negative legacy as something like Bubsy 3D or E.T., but in my opinion it is actually much worse than those games, and it saddens me that this crime against gaming isn't more hated. Shaving your pubes with a chainsaw is more satisfying than this game. It's a game so bad it almost makes me regret destroying my copy of The Mummy for DS. Drake of the 99 Dragons gets a 1.5 out of 10. And had it not been for the halfway decent soundtrack, this would have gotten a straight up 1. It's that fucking bad. On the bright side, at least I only paid 69 cents for this game. But even at that price, I wouldn't recommend you play this title even out of sheer curiosity. Avoid it at all costs.